Fortunately, we have one working microphone. So now I would like to invite Mo, who actually is, we just had a chat with him before that, of how many of you guys are using Miro in their daily work. You see, so yeah, so Mo was not sure whether it's that popular in our company and in general in the market. I told him, it's an absolutely.
I know it's a popular thing in the market, but I wasn't sure about everybody.
We are actually using. But yeah, please welcome Mo, senior solutions engineer, former CTO, and actually, just an advocate of Miro, who will be sharing, the latest developments and how we business analysts can get the most value out of the product. So Mo, welcome. Please, that's the microphone.
Thank you very much, everyone. Can you make it? Okay, perfect. And you should be able to see my screen. Okay. This point? Yeah. Yes, good. Okay, perfect. Well, I'm here to talk about today's work, and I think we might be able to relate to this slide here that says work is messy. It's kind of complicated because of this situation. Can anyone relate to this? Do you have so many of these tools that you try to use on a regular basis? Yeah. Is it hard? Makes things complicated, doesn't it? Especially in your BA world, you're trying to do so many things. If you're, for example, if you're trying to do work management, of course, you're going to do some backlog and road mapping, diagramming. We talked a little bit about that with Ramon. Doing all these things in different tools and having to go to those places, find that link, find that tool, find whatever, it makes this really complicated. This is the collaboration chaos, and it causes a lot of problem, like wasted time. There is a research that was done by Aludo that realized that there is 3 hours of work lost every week from this situation of poor collaboration. And this is something that's a really big deal in the market. And you're going to have situations like this where you're going to miss details at some point. So there's another research that was done by Zug. If you're using 10 apps, which I'm sure I probably do something like that, at least 5, but this is what the problem is, because you're trying to switch from, your maybe Jira to Miro. I see a lot of you are using that, to Slack, to Teams, whatever that might mean. And this ultimately is leading us to potentially burnout, but on the other hand, maybe just employee dissatisfaction. And that's never good, right? So you're frustrated. So how can we get better at this? That's what I'll talk about today. How can we be more productive? I'm Hossain. We already introduced myself, so I don't need to go into that. You can see that I work at Miro, so that's what I'm going to talk about. But ultimately, some of the things that I'm going to share with you, it doesn't have to be just about Miro. It could be outside of Miro as well. I would urge you to think about it in a general way. How can I do some of these things in my life? So we need to make the shift. The shift is a new way of working. And that could look like some of these 4 elements that I'm going to share with you shortly. So number 1, cut meetings. This is something that I think all of us find challenging in many different ways, because I get invited to a meeting. It's like, okay, I should probably join. But then I end up just being there for 5 minutes. That's really relevant for me. I didn't need to be there in the first place, right? So this async work that we're trying to do, I think we're trying to be more mindful of this, and how do we do this? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how do you do async work, asynchronous, like at the same time with other people, maybe in different parts of the world. And then we have this other thing that we keep hearing throughout the day, which is AI. There is a lot of interesting things you mentioned, Bindu. I was curious from that security element, because in my job, I have to know a lot of things about a lot of people and companies, and AI helps me do this at speed with a lot of clarity. And this adaptive element is quite interesting, because nowadays, how many presentations maybe we're working on a monthly basis? Like 1, 2? Right? Can we get some hands up? 4? Okay. Okay. So if you all multiply all of those in your company, you have a lot of data, right? We talked about that value of data. You have a lot of data, probably in different systems. Yeah, that's the problem, but we need to solve that problem. How do we connect it all together? But this word adaptive, we can adapt those things that are in our tools to make it more fluid in what we're trying to do in our world. Now, I'll talk to you a little bit about how that works in Miro, but this doesn't, again, have to be about Miro, because when you have all these different tools that you're using, maybe Confluence, whatever you have in your business, you need to make sure they're all effectively talking to each other, right? So how do you get that together? There are tools out there. For example, at Miro, we use a tool called Glean that brings in a lot of those tools together, where I can just search and say, hey, I need something or a question. It'll give me some information back, just like you would do with perhaps GPT. And then finally, we need to try to, this is related to the last one, we need to integrate everything together, or as much as we can. We're not going to be able to do everything, but as much as we can integrate, it will help us do a little bit better in terms of how we get focus, how ideally we see some more less burnout and all those other problems that we were seeing before. And this number that I showed you here, we'll talk a little bit more about that today, but I want to show you how you can try to be a little more productive, which I think I probably am a lot more productive now using Miro, but some of these things that I just shared, and we'll dig into what that means shortly. So I'm an avid traveler. Do we have any travelers here in the room? Yeah, okay, great. So I'm going to give you a demo today about Miro, and in my demo, I'm going to talk about creating a travel app. So I'm going to talk a little bit from mainly the business analyst perspective, but there will be some other roles like product management, etc., that might be relevant. And the idea here is effectively just how do we plan a trip where we have information about maybe some things I'm going to do in my tour, some tours that I'm going to do, where are the flights, etc. If we have all this stuff in one place, it makes things easier. This already exists in the market, so I'm not going to actually create it, but we're going to talk about how to do something like this, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. And I've been over 50 countries at this point, so I consider myself to have a bit of a PhD in packing. If you have any questions, let me know. I will answer those questions for you. So I have my team here. This is just people from various different parts of the world. So I'm going to be the business analyst. We have our project manager, Sarfraz, lives in Bangladesh. We have Ashley, who's a product manager in the US. And we have Sean, designer, Valeria, who's a developer. I'm sure this is something that looks pretty similar in your day-to-day. I'm sure your list goes on and on. This is probably what your day looks like. And then, of course, your client, in this case, mine is venture capital, where giving the money is important, and get some feedback from them. So here at this point, I have to introduce you to Miro, but it sounds like you already pretty much know Miro. For those who haven't been introduced to Miro, it is a visual collaboration platform where you can do lots of different things. And this word here, I want to point out, the connective tissue. We want Miro to be that connective tissue where we're trying to bring in information. We're not telling you to get rid of all your tools and use Miro. That's not going to work, never going to work. I know that, you know that. But we want you to be able to bring as much as you can in one place. So if you go to that one board, or there's something called space, then you'll be able to find information much faster than you were able to before. So that's the innovation workspace is the term that we're using. That's where you go innovate. And I'm going to talk to you about some of these things. Of course, in an environment with your clients, you're going to do many different tasks, maybe with working with other folks as well to do some of these things, right? To get to the end product, whatever that is. So we're going to talk about some of these things, particularly the ones that are in green. And at this point, I'm probably going to need a chair to sit here maybe and do my demo. And you can see that I'm already in a board in Miro doing my presentation. Does anyone know the do presentations in Miro? Perfect, yes. There are a lot of really exciting things that are coming with the presentation. So keep an eye out on that. And hopefully this is a good spot for me to sit. Yeah, okay, cool. Perfect. So first thing we talked about is the idea of cutting meetings, right? So you might know that we have something called templates in Miro, where if you press this button here, it will bring you this view where you can search for thousands of templates. So in your environment for your project, maybe one of the things you're trying to do is something related to a product mapping, PI planning. So some of these things, depending on what you're trying to do, if you just click on some of these things or just search up here, you'll find new things that you can use. These are templates. All you have to do is effectively push this button that will bring templates into the board where you can start to do various different things that you might need to. So in this case, I built this demo with various different templates, so you can see a flavor of some of those. So I have, for example, a requirement canvas here, which is a template. So if you are gathering in requirements, I'm sure your requirements look a lot more complicated than this, so apologies for that, but you'll see some things like this where you can bring in information from, for example, your colleagues, maybe you have some requirements, your clients, etc. Once you do this, you can, of course, and by the way, if you're not familiar, this is a sticky, and this is an unlimited sticky pack. If you've never not noticed this, you can find that here. And the idea is you're going to go into your sticky and type in whatever it is that's relevant for you. That will get you that requirement, right? And so everyone's probably aware of this. This is not complicated. You might have a situation of, okay, I need to get votes to understand what are the most important requirements. So you'll see something like this, for example, where I can drag a dot vote right there from the corner into my stickies to give a vote. So here is where I'm going to talk a little bit about how do you're normally doing this, and you're probably doing this in a meeting with other people as in a live situation. But you really don't have to do that in a live environment, because there's something called talk track. And if you are not familiar with talk track, if you click this button here, if you just hit this button, record talk track, it will allow you to, hopefully the audio is okay, it doesn't cause any problems, but basically something like this. Okay, so hey team, nice to talk to you again. Please review my requirements here and vote on these stickies to make sure that we're all on the same page. And that's, I mean, obviously you can make it more complicated, but that's it. That's as long as it has to be. And then other folks, you can send them a link to this, or if you play it, again, hopefully this is not going to cause much problem. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I can see, you can actually hear anything, but you see now it's going through this, as I'm talking, it's showing me what's happened. So effectively at this point, what I've done is created a 30-second, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever, recording within Miro and not have to get on a call, which is maybe sometimes you need it, but you really don't need to do that at every single time. Because you can see what people are doing on the Miro board, and that's about it, right? So that is one way to cut meetings, and you see some other themes as I go continue on forward. Here's another example of a project kickoff template that I pulled in before, and I can put in obviously some photos and other things to make sure we are understanding where the project is going, etc. We don't need to talk more about that because that's nothing really too complicated. But here we talked a little bit already about how to promote async work, right? There's also another element of within async work is working by myself before I give you more information, right? So here's an element of bringing data into Miro. This could be, for example, if I go over here, your OneDrive Excel doc, potentially, if you're using Google Drive with clients, perhaps, you can bring those things into Miro. You can bring in Power BI, you can bring in videos from YouTube or other places. You can bring in websites. The idea here is once you bring that in, you're going to need to do some analysis probably, which is probably a lot of your job. So one of the things that you can do, for example, in this case, I have OneDrive. I can zoom into here. Let me just show you what I just did. This is a focused view. This is something that we are working on. If I click on this object, I can press this button, and this will give me the focused mode. I'm within Miro seeing an Excel document that's in OneDrive. So it's quite good for that problem that I was referring to before, burnout of all the tools effectively. I'm going to press this button that says go to Canvas. You can see I already brought some here. But the idea is I'm going to copy some of those. I just did it with my shortcuts here. But if I do this, paste it as stickies, you'll see that I have all of those stickies that I just copied from there. This is probably nothing too new for you so far, but now you should have AI, this button here, which I'll do it in a different way. So I have all this information that I got from my Excel document. I'm going to press this other button, which is also Miro AI, and I will notice that there's something called cluster right here, and I can cluster this information by keyword or sentiment. This is something that Miro AI, using OpenAI GPT, will figure out what is actually happening in this piece of information. So it will then say, okay, You have some people that are disliking something. There's people that are requesting certain features. This is just field research that we've done to bring that into Miro. And then we can very quickly have this information in this theming sort of approach, right? But it doesn't have to be just this, because this, I didn't really do anything effectively. Like maybe I'm thinking I need specific information in a specific way. If I go back here and I can click on doc, I can actually just write a prompt that will very specifically, I could very specifically say, give me themes around energy, I don't know where energy went, or security or whatever, right? Depending on what you're looking for, it will put it into those buckets in a Word doc or in a Miro doc and give you that information in a very simple way. So that's something that you can do in Miro. Hopefully that's something new.
Yeah, I mean, like,
is it just for the stickers that you selected?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So you can select all the things on my board. Like you can select as many things as you want, and it will only for the clustering. It'll do best ease. Yes.
because that's a big part of the work that you usually do, because you can have a lot of ideas or user stories or concepts, and part of the job is actually sorting, forming the skeleton of the product out of those.
Yeah.
This one
Are you telling me you're going to save 21.3%?
Probably.
No, yes, I can see that. All right. So
you have to create all the classification and everything. Now we check and verify. So yes, we probably have to do both. So it's an improvement.
So every workshop you only have time, like let's cluster them. And that's like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Now you can do it within seconds. All right. So I'm going to show you something else that I think could be interesting. I'm telling you to do async work, but it's not always going to make sense, right? So you will often have to do things like this, workshops with people, either real live in person or on virtual. I don't know where folks are. Hello. So you will be able to use templates like this to define some of these things. So again, same, it's all the things that you're already used to, the problem, the audience, etc. Like nothing too complicated here. But we are introducing, or we have introduced Miro AI to here as well. There's a button that I have pre-created that says generate ideas, and I'll just zoom in so you can see it just appeared out of nowhere using Miro AI, and it's taken into context these four frames here to say, okay, what do I need to do in this case? I actually have solutions that I've defined with my teams, but I want to use AI to give me more ideas. So because it already knows about this solution, it will expand on that and say, how about this? Did you think about that? And if you don't, if you say, okay, this is not really relevant for me, get rid of it. You can do the dot coding here as well, to make sure it's relevant. Get rid of all, generate again, whatever makes sense. But
it's already available.
Yes, you already have it. I'll show you how to get there. And then you can also press this other button that I just pressed now to create a product brief. Very simply, we now have a product brief from those 5 frames that I just had. Yes?
So question about the previous one, but how do you define based on like which part of the board will be considered?
Yeah, very good question. So if I select this object, actually, let me show you before I do that. I just want to make sure. I think I'm going to run out of time. So if I go to this this thing called Action Shortcut, this is a new feature that you'll have. If you press this button, it will bring this up for you. And you can say, I want to create a shortcut, which, for example, a timer or a talk track, those kinds of shortcuts, or you want to create. Create is this is what I'm doing. And you say what you want to create, in this case, .doc or some of these things. But I will, if I just go out of here, I'll click on this one, I'll edit this, and you can see the actions that I've already done. I have the sources, and I also have the destination to answer your question. My destination is this frame that's called generate doc. So it will generate in that spot where I'm asking it to generate. And I have a prompt, so I don't know if anyone has a prompt engineering background, but you can go to GPT, type in your ideas, and tell it to give you a prompt. Which I see some smart people here in the room. You can get this prompt as long as you give it some context. And of course, this prompt may not make the perfect sense for me. But if you change some of these things by saying, for example, okay, in the data points, I don't need to include qualitative information. Maybe I don't have it, whatever. That's the idea. So once you get the idea from AI, then you can change it to whatever you need to, and
so
you have a prompt.
Basically an agent within Miro, right?
Correct.
You can also create
So then you have a product brief. Again, I need to kind of go quickly, I think. So I will try to be fast here. But you have this doc now within Miro. This is something that we introduced recently. It's a format that allows you to put in any information in here. You can use it as a normal document, like a Word doc. I can edit things. I can add images and whatnot, right? So I would explore that a little bit. But it's not just that. This thing is my favorite part. So I'm just going to actually do this because let me see. Here we go. I forgot to mention. So even though we were doing that maybe in person or on a virtual call, that whole process maybe would have taken us an hour before. It could be done in 30 minutes. Of course, like if the project is complicated, maybe from 5 hours to 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. So that's the idea, right? So the other thing I'm going to do now is select these stickies here. I'm going to click back on my AI, and I'm going to go to table, and I'm going to say project trackers. This is important. And I'm going to say start date and end date for a specific reason. And you'll notice that, again, I have selected these objects, which are stickies, and I'm saying that, or I'm seeing that it says 24 are used in context. And if I press this button, this might take a little bit of time. Let's see how long it'll take. But it will create well, actually, I did it before. So it will create this project tracker based on the features that I put in here, the other ideas that I have on those stickies. And it will, the owners obviously won't make sense because it's just made up, but it will give you start dates and end dates. Probably also won't make sense for you, but you can change it. There you are, that's done. And it will also have status. This is another new thing that we have within Miro, which is a table. And if you need to table, you can always go down here and find this table. But I generated this with AI. You can see I've also added some nice colors and everything, and you can also add additional fields here, columns here to make it related to the other things that you were talking about.
What's the source of the start date and end date?
It's made up.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't have to include that in there. The reason I did for my demo specifically is because what I can do, let me just get rid of this, is to sync this. And if you copy this and if you paste it, it will ask me, do I want to duplicate or sync? I want to sync this, which will allow me to, you'll see that there's 3 copies now of the synced version, which will allow me to change this, which I can now see a timeline. I'll actually just show you the one I already created before. Go into focus mode, and this is the timeline of the same project plan with the same tasks that you have. And that's the start and end date. So obviously you'll have to make some adjustments to make it all work correctly. You can move these around for different dates, maybe. You can change the weeks and months of whatever this view might have to be. That is the power that we're bringing to you with AI to get to that next step much faster. Use a project plan, use a sync copy of a timeline all in one place. This can get a lot more complicated, of course, but we don't have really time for that. So maybe on another call, we can do that. So I don't think I have the time for all of the other things, but I do want to mention that within Miro, you can do process mapping. Now you can do that with AI as well. So if you go here, you'll see flowcharts and these other diagrams that you can create. So here's an example of my process map documentation. So I have a very specific documentation that says do this, this thing, which is in Miro doc here. And if I click on this, I say basically go in here, say flowchart. You'll see that it's one object selected. I can say, ask it to create a flowchart for me, and it will simply just create a flowchart for me. It won't look as nice as the one I created here because I made it colorful and all nice afterwards. But the idea is that you can get something very quickly, but then make it your own. So it's the same idea with AI from anywhere. It's going to get you 70, 80% of the way, but you need to sort of finish the race, right? You can do things like architecture diagrams. Some of you, especially talking about the security and everything, might find that interesting. You can create prototypes in Miro if you need to. So the idea isn't to get designers into Miro and create prototypes. It's for us as business analysts to get some ideas. So I have a specific thing I'm thinking about. I'm in my client meeting. I'm going to just say, okay, let's create something for me. And then I'm going to talk to my client that's sitting next to me. I was like, hey, do you like this? Does this make sense to you? And they say, no, yeah, I have some other ideas. And so very simply, you can just make some edits here, and then you hand it over to your designer. But hey, don't worry, because they're probably going to work in Figma, and we have a integration to Figma where you can bring it in, you can put it all in one place in peace again. And
can you actually generate some designs using AI, or
yes, those two, the examples that I created, they're all created with AI. So if I go back here, if I click this button here, I say text prompt, I can say, let's say mobile. I want to create a multi-flow like I just did, and I just need to type in something about what I'm interested in. The more detail you give it, the more contextual it'll be, obviously. So that's what I would recommend. So that would be helpful. And then, of course, you saw me present, so I don't need to talk about it. Slides are very interesting. I also will take 30 seconds here for the last part, which is integrate. You saw me integrate things into my board from OneDrive. What else did I integrate? I can't remember actually anymore, but Figma. And then Jira, you can also integrate. So some of you probably are working with clients that are using Confluence, Jira. You can integrate even Azure DevOps in a two-sync way. So I, for example, am not a Jira expert. I don't really want to go into Jira, but I need to see some things about Jira, potentially about where my project is. So if I connect it to Miro, I can bring this board where I can see, for example, I've completed a couple of tasks in my sprint 1. Again, it's very simple compared to your projects that you're looking at. My developers finished 1, but they've got some more to go in sprint 2. And I can also do a lot more things like assign things to different people, do estimates, see dependencies from one project to another or within the project itself. That's all possible within Miro. And hey, we've done so much work that it's launch day. It's quite happy. We're excited, aren't we? And so we're going to launch this out to the world. And afterwards, we probably need to make sure that we are monitoring this to make sure everyone is getting all the things that you're interested in, happy. But maybe we have some data in Power BI. So again, integrate information as much as you can. Here I have a dashboard that's within Miro, but it's connected to Power BI. I can see my dashboard. I can keep an eye on my app, make sure that there aren't any problems. And if there are any problems, I should get an alert from Power BI and be on my way to work with the developer, right? So I hope that all made sense and didn't go too fast. So you saw some of these things that I just talked about. Hopefully made sense. If you have questions, we can refer to that. So all of these things that I shared before, again, it doesn't have to all be in Miro, but you can make it in Miro if you want to, just like I did. And I think this is pretty obvious at this point, but once you bring everything together, the thing that you're going to get, the value, is hopefully not having to extend the timeline of projects, which is I've been a consultant before. That's something I've dealt with before, and it's never pleasant for the client or you as a company. And then accelerate, ideally, those projects so they can be even done faster, which probably won't happen, but maybe just a tiny bit. And so this number, I kind of made this up. It's kind of what I think is I'm productive, but that's not just made up. It's got some backing to it. We do something called a Miro value assessment with our customers, and this is probably about 6 months or a year old at this point. But we have understood that without Miro AI, which now you can see how fast things can go. People say of all these people, 40,000, they say they can save about 3 hours per week, which is pretty good. But if we apply AI to it, maybe it could be 8 hours, potentially a full day. I mean, you're probably not going to take that as a vacation day, but maybe we'll just speed things up a little bit, or we'll just take a little bit of a break, if that allows you. And then there's all these other metrics that you can see where I sort of came up with that 21.3 idea. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what makes sense. So I would urge you to start being more productive today with some of the things that I showed you. If you have any questions, we can certainly help answer those questions. And also, if you want to use Miro and you don't already have it, we think most of you already do, you can reach out to your leaders within your business. And we can also do sessions that are a lot more in-depth than this 30-minute session. And here myself, I'm here again. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you like. And Jay is the account manager in the back here. So you can all say hello to Jay after. And this is something that you probably don't know. This is a QR Stickies app, which is interesting because if you enable it, you can do workshops in such an environment. I can have all of you put something in here. If you scan it, it will appear here if you type something in your browser, and that will allow me to see your questions. But you might already have questions that you want to ask, but I think I'm also out of time, so that might just be over. Anything else before I wrap up?
I can see our 4-day working week coming soon. I'm very happy with that.
That is one way to get there. Yes, absolutely. I would love to have a 4-day work week.
Have you
Yes.
done any work in terms of, I know because you clearly said 21.3, have you done any work in comparison with other requirements management tools and why this is standing out?
No, it's so even the metrics that I was showing before, it's difficult. I sometimes get on user interviews, I'm sure a lot of you do, to understand how people use Miro and what value they get. It is really difficult to have them say, yeah, like I saved X amount of time per week. I ask that question every time, and it's really difficult. So it's one of those things that we have to almost infer from the other things that they're saying.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that clarification. In terms of the features itself, because I was looking at the other demos, the presentations about AI, embedding AI into their requirements management tools. And every time when we see it, it feels wow, because it does things so quickly. So my question here is Miro standing out in any of those features in comparison to other requirements? I mean, it's not properly technically a requirements management tool, but in comparison to that, for example, let me give you there's a tracking facility, okay, of requirements, which is again a very fundamental feature for BAs. So when there's any change, the tracking happens and all that. So I'm just trying to understand if I, as an end user, have to choose, have you done any work in terms of saying those and why this is, the highlights of your product?
Yeah, just through those value assessments. So it's not that technical at the end of the day. It's more qualitative in most cases, I would say. But we can talk more about it. Sounds like you have some ideas that I'd like to hear.
Yeah, we'll have the networking part after the main stage. So thank you, Mo. Thank you so much.
All right.